The COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Everyone ran their socks off tonight and they left everything out there. They're very proud of the team's performance.
Let the shackles off Katie a bit so that she can go and play her game.
We're going to go out there to beat them. We're going to try and beat them.
Hello there and welcome to episode 24 of the COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports. I'm Kathleen McNamee and joining me this week is one of our incredible super subs, Pearl Slattery. Pearl, Peamount drew a game at the weekend and Karen has disappeared. Is she crying a bit of poor form or justified?
Where is she? Where is she is what I'm asking. I can't believe she did it this weekend of all weekends. But look, I'm just praying me and Karen are friends by the end of 4:30 next Saturday when we play each other. So once we are, that'll be all good. But yeah. Bad weekend, give it a miss, Kathleen. Definitely a bad weekend.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that was also part of it. She didn't want to come on and have me asking her loads of questions about form and the like. She'll let you get a bit of trash talking before she does it on the pitch at the weekend. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As always, it's always lovely to have you on. The COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports is in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland women's national team. Karen might be away this week, but for everyone's sake, Emma Carroll is back from her holiday and ready and waiting with another team of the week, so no one has to be subjected to my picks as we were last week. First, though, we're going to chat about the weekend's WSL penultimate, well, for most teams, penultimate weekend. There is some midweek games for some teams, but some interesting results, quite a few of them, what you would expect. I'm actually going to start with one that I didn't see coming, and that was Everton drawing 2-2 with Tottenham. Just incredible game for Everton in what was quite an incredible weekend for both their men's and women's teams. What a comeback, Pearl.
Yeah, unbelievable. Like late goals, and as you said, like the men's team, we probably didn't expect them to beat Chelsea either, and then obviously the draw here. But I think Everton, throughout the season, I know their form hasn't been great, but they've always had that fighting spirit, and look, to pull a draw so late was really nice. It was a great header, wasn't it, at the end of the game. But yeah, look, a nice point for them, and as I said, they've always had a nice fighting spirit. They'll probably finish 10th, I think, in the league table now. And I think they'll be looking now just to get this season over with now and rebuild in the summer, hopefully, and give a good push on there for next season.
I think what was interesting about this performance from Everton as well was so many times we've seen them push until the very end and then just be undone, maybe not have the mental capacity to carry themselves through over the finish line, whereas that was the complete opposite in this game. I mean, going 1-1 and then 2-1 and then 2-2, it was such an exciting, and I think it's maybe slightly shows a picture of where Spurs have gone this season as well, in that at the start of the season we were talking about them as like easy Champions League contenders, possibly even top 3. Like they were performing incredibly well, and they just seem to have collapsed a little bit. And when you look at the stats from the match, I was surprised at how close both of them were. I think the possession was pretty much 50-50 for a lot of it. Yeah. Pass accuracy, both teams were in the high 70s. Do you think that this is just symptomatic of a Spurs team that's maybe still building and is maybe needs a few more world-class players before it starts competing all the way to the end of the season?
Yeah, I think so. Like, look, obviously credit to Everton. Like when you can see it so late, naturally the head normally goes down, doesn't it? As you said, for Everton, even though they've had a fighting spirit, but then to pull a goal back was great. And look, I think Tottenham have to have 4 defeats out of their last 5, and then obviously that draw. But I think if they add, a body or two, they seem to have a good group, but they definitely need 3 or 4 new bodies in, I think. But look, I mean, they're sitting 5th. It's not a bad position. And then if you make a sign and 2 or 3 signings during the summer, I always look at teams in and around the middle of the table, and you look at the Chelsea, Arsenal's, Manchester sides. Like it's very hard for everybody else to compete. But they're not what they're about. I don't know, is it 11 points off fourth spot? So I think if we look to close that gap next season, then that'd be a really good season for them. But I think it's been an okay season for Tottenham. But I think I agree with you. If they add a few more bodies now, they can hopefully push on next season.
The second, surprising, not in the fact that it was a win for Chelsea, but I suppose just that Chelsea didn't put more goals past Birmingham, 1-0, and a really unfortunate one for them to concede the penalty. I don't think too many people had any complaints about the giving away of the penalty. It was just one of those awkward ones where it happens and there's nothing you can really do to stop it. But again, what I've seen with this Chelsea team is they haven't been playing at their best the last couple of matches, but they're just able to grind out that win. And where you see teams like Arsenal and City putting 6 or 7 past their opposition, Chelsea are just eking it out all the way into the final weekend.
Absolutely. I think it shows the depth they have in their squad even. Look, the first 10 minutes, I thought they were going to be 2-0 up. They had great chances. And then all of a sudden, when you see, Claire's shot hit the crossbar, bounce off the line, you're thinking it's going to be one of those days because, Birmingham are fighting for their lives. Chelsea are throwing everything at them, and it wasn't really happening for them. And then it goes to show the quality they have on their bench. I mean, Weir coming on, she was the super sub. She was the game changer, if you like. She injected energy into the game. The penalty, it was, when I first seen it, I was thinking, it's a bit harsh because she's not even looking at it. But I mean, if your hand's up, that's the rule. It's a penalty. And then, Harder goes up. Look, we all know the quality Harder has, but that was a pressure penalty because we all knew. I'd imagine all the Arsenal girls were watching and thinking, is it going to be one of these days? And then to step up and take the penalty. And then it was obviously interesting to hear the interview after the game and Erin Cosbert saying, Harder constantly, practices penalties every single session she's doing, 3 or 4 of them after every session. She knew, she was just confident that she felt when Harder was going up, she's going to score. So people just think, people go up and take those penalties, but a world-class player like Harder practicing penalties after every single game, really is incredible. But for me, it just, it showed the quality of the squad. A few subs came on, they're bringing James on, who obviously hadn't had a run of games, but even bringing the likes of herself on is pure quality. But for me, and I think Cuthbert in the end got player of the match, and she only came on at half time, which is incredible. But to me, she's been unbelievable this season. She's one of those players, she's a manager's dream. She'll play anywhere for you, she'll give you everything. And I think that game yesterday just epitomised our season, really.
Yeah, Erin Cosbert has featured in a lot of our conversations this year, in particular for how good she's been. And also because I think a lot of the time she's doing the grunt work that you're not necessarily seeing. She's running around the midfield, she's making sure the passes are going up, she's running back and defending. She's not necessarily scoring the goals and getting the credit, but she is putting everything in. And I think that's the thing that we have seen with Emma Hayes and Chelsea. Emma Hayes isn't afraid to hold players back and give them time, but she's also not afraid to throw younger players on or less experienced players and build them up. I think you look at even what she's done with someone with like Jess Carter in the last year, who has really come to light under Hayes and is now able to play in like multiple different positions and has become pretty much maybe not undroppable in a team like Chelsea, but she has become a regular in a way that she just wasn't last season. I think that's great to see. You look at the firepower that Chelsea has. You talk about players like Harder there. They didn't have a single shot on target in the first half.
Crazy.
And I don't mean this in a bad way, because they are a team that have pulled off some shocks, obviously beating Arsenal in January, but against Birmingham you would expect a shot on target in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just goes to show you, I think in any league now, especially in the WSL, and teams like Birmingham, in fairness, who've been fighting tooth and nail for every point, even before the game, I was thinking, this is going to be tricky, they're captained by Louise, who we had on, obviously, and you just know Carter, their manager, has done really well since he's come in, and I knew it was going to be a tricky one, but I definitely didn't think there'd be no shots on target. That was a strange one, and that's when you're kind of thinking, is it going to be one of those days? And God, you can imagine the Arsenal girls watching and thinking, hoping that continues like that. And then unfortunately for Birmingham, it's a penno in the end, but look, an incredible performance by Birmingham. And I don't know if you watched the game, but Emily Whelan could have snatched a draw late on.
Yeah, Berger tapping that.
Oh my God, that'd have been an incredible story for an Irish girl to go on then and equalise. And it was great to see, look, the likes of Emily come on, Jamie Finn obviously played, Louise has been brilliant. And look, you have to win dirty sometimes, every single team, no matter who you are, no matter what firepower you have. And I'm telling you now, Emma would be absolutely delighted with that result yesterday. Penno or not, once they win the game, it's so important. With one game left, a huge 3 points for Chelsea.
Definitely. A very emphatic win for Arsenal, 7-0 against Aston Villa. Miedema brace, an own goal from Rachel Corsie. Very nice long range strike from Beth Mead. I've seen it is on the WSL Twitter. If anyone wants to check it out, would recommend it. Wubba Moy once again on the score sheet. She's been doing that a bit recently.
She's flying.
Yeah, she's loving getting the goals. And then Blackstenius and Paris as well, who actually reached her 50th WSL goal, which is great to see for her. Nothing really to note from the game. I mean, Arsenal were completely dominant. Unfortunate injury to Jordan Nobbs during the game. Now, she was quite upset leaving the pitch, but there's been no word how bad it is. I suppose everyone is just hoping it's not another ACL for her after missing out on the World Cup. But even with the amount of game time and stuff she's been getting this season, I don't know, would she have been a definite for the Euros anyways? And yeah, just tough for a player like that. I mean, getting ACLs or those sort of knee injuries, they're just so hard to come back from.
Absolutely. And look, we've talked to Chloe, we've talked to Rianna there who've done the injuries, and obviously seeing Nobbs, that she looked quite upset because obviously they're coming up to the Euros, they're hosting, and she must be thinking, what look? And it didn't look anything major, but you just knew by her. I think when you've done injuries like that, you know. And I suppose just looking at her during the game, I suppose it was that fear, wasn't it? So you're hoping now that comes out, and look, it's nothing too serious, but I think everybody expected Arsenal to win that game, and they won it comfortably in the end. And like, Mai deserves a shout out, doesn't she? She's a centre back and she's banging in the goals the last few weeks, which is absolutely brilliant to see. And then everybody thought, you know, how long is it going to take Paris to get her 50th goal? So look, I seen her hug a few of the girls after. It was like a relief for her. Look, she's been a top player around the league, hasn't she, for many years. But meeting her for the second for one of the goals, her feet was just, you know, incredible. And look, it all goes down now to, obviously, if Arsenal win Wednesday night against Spurs, it goes down to the last day, which is just unbelievable excitement for everybody involved. And I think Arsenal have West Ham, and then Chelsea obviously have United, which is just going to be cracking time.
Yeah, I really hope Arsenal do win this week, just for the pure thing of it going down to the final day. I think the last time it happened was like 2014 or something, 2015, 2016. It was a long time ago anyways, and it's nice.
Kind of been a few weeks, the last few years, you've kind of known who's going to win it, where this year it's just brilliant to go down to the last weekend, hopefully.
Yeah, Leicester drew 0-0 with Reading. A win would have seen them making sure that they stay up, but that is still slightly uncertain because they got the draw. United, not all that convincing, but beat West Ham 3-0 to keep the pressure on City. But City 7-2 against Brighton. Brighton's run of poor form continues. Yeah. And a bit of a masterclass from Kadisha Shaw, who surprisingly we haven't seen that much this year in a City jersey, and watching her at the weekend I was like, why? I think I say this most weeks.
Yeah, I suppose it sums up City's season though, because City's season, I think at the start and middle they were struggling, and in fairness, Shaw had a few glimpses throughout the season, but she was excellent the weekend. It just goes to show the quality. But I just think City in general now, they're in great form. The whole squad is buzzing. Even I always go back to Caroline Weir, who probably middle of the season wasn't getting in, and now she's again in unbelievable form. You thought, how was somebody like Caroline Weir at one stage not getting into the City team, and now she's back to her best. I think she scored another goal the weekend. And look, yeah, it was a brilliant performance, and they're in really good form. I think they've a game in hand, don't they, over United, and you know, if they win that. But again, it's just brilliant to see that rivalry, isn't it, with the Manchester teams fighting it out for that third spot. The league is going to end in an incredible fashion, which is great to see. But I was delighted for Shaw, because she's one of those strikers who probably hasn't got as much time as she would like, and then comes on, and her attitude was great. And some nice finishes, poker finishes the weekend. And I think City have scored 15 goals in their last 3 games. It just kind of tells you the form they're in, which is great to see.
Yeah, they have definitely jumped up from where they were at the start of the season. If you have any thoughts on this weekend's action in the WSL, please get them into us on Twitter at @offtheball using the hashtag OTB COYGIG.
The COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
She is back to save me from the multi-screen madness that is picking a COYGIG team of the week. Emma Carroll, welcome back. We hope you had a wonderful time away, but who has made the cut on your team this week?
I'll run through it really fast. In goal, Brosnan. 4 at the back with Greenwood, Wibben, Quinn and Bronze. A midfield duo of Cuthbert and Shannon O'Brien. And then we've got Hemp, Miedema, Mead and Shaw up top.
Once again, very nice Irish involvement there. As always. I think this is the first time we've had Brosnan in a team of the week.
Yeah, I think it is, yeah. I thought, I was watching the Birmingham Chelsea game. It's like Ramsey was done well, her positioning was well, but like so very surprisingly, Chelsea didn't have a shot on target until the penalty. So
Crazy.
It's absolutely nuts. And then just watching Everton, I thought Brosnan was probably quite busy, done well, made a couple of saves, conceded 2, but I think the defenders were probably a little bit more questionable for the 2 goals than she was. Maybe her positioning could have been a little bit better, but I think overall she deserves a shout.
There was one particular save that Brosnan made that was very reminiscent of a fingertip save she made during the Sweden game, and I just love seeing her do it again, because I was like, yes, Courtney, more of this, please, when it comes to the rest of the World Cup qualifiers. This is what we need. Yeah, I actually didn't have a massive amount of complaints this week. I've just gone slightly less harsh in my old age after having done one team of the week myself, and I will keep bringing this up because of the stress it gave me. But I did think that there could have been a shout for more United players. I know they weren't the most, cutting edge a lot of the time, but they did take their chances when they came. I thought players like Martha Thomas in particular was quite impressive.
Yeah, and like maybe Galton as well had a really good game. But I just think like it's just so hard to look past Hemp at the moment on that left wing. And then Shaw scored 4, so she definitely gets the nod ahead of Thomas. But Galton was definitely kind of on my list, on my short list. She's on the bench, Kathleen.
I had Galton question mark, and then Emma, similar to you, like how do you drop Hemp or even put her on the opposite mid's goal alone and the form she's in? But Hemp is just, I've no more words for her. I think she made her 100th appearance, did she, the weekend? And
just brilliant.
So young for player of the year, like.
You just look like, and she can like both wings, because now that Chloe Kelly has been playing the last few games as well, you see them swap so much. And Chloe Kelly could be another one that was worth a shout, because I think she's finding form really quickly since coming back from such another ACL injury again. So, but I think Kemp she's just one of those this season that's like probably one of the players of the season, really, and I just can't overlook her at the moment when she's playing that form.
Williamson, what do you think?
No. Louise Quinn is getting in there. Listen, Wibben got the goal, and it was probably a shout between the 2 of them, to be honest. They didn't have an awful lot to do in defence, but that's exactly it. It was that because of that, they had the chance to step forward and make those passes. And the 2 of them are actually striking up a really nice partnership now as well. And the both of them can spring those diag balls across the field as well. So, but I thought Quinn was brilliant against Chelsea. I thought just excellent. So she was definitely getting in there. Like, let's face it.
Yeah.
They almost kept a clean sheet. So.
Yeah, almost. I know. Penno as well should be coursing it. But Cupboard definitely great show.
Yeah, only played 45 minutes, and I think she got player of the match. And she came on and she just gave. Chelsea were quite passive, and maybe it's 3 games in a week. Maybe it was just kind of hitting them, and Birmingham had something to play for. And but when she came on, I think in the first 5 minutes she ran back and she just like slid in and intercepted a ball, and just straight away you could just see her energy is just incredible.
Just lifts everyone, doesn't it?
Unbelievable she is.
Another one that we mentioned a little bit in our intro to the entire show was Caroline Weir. Again, thought she played particularly well. I know City didn't have exactly a hard time, thanks to Katisha Shaw's 4 goals, doubling her tally for the entire season in one match. But I just think she has been so strong and really kind of cemented her place when she wasn't really getting the game time earlier in the season. Yeah,
she's just brilliant recently, isn't she? I've had her in a couple recently, and then just kind of watching Leicester, and again they've something to play for, and they got the draw, and I just thought Shannon O'Brien was really good. And we don't always get a chance to shout about these players, because we do tend to put the players that are in those teams that are scoring goals, that are constantly doing it. Sometimes the players down the bottom end of the table can get a bit looked over, but I thought she had a really good game, and she could have had a goal or 2 as well. Unfortunate not to really put them away.
And since we are kind of going into our final matches of the season, I keep calling it the final weekend, but I'm aware there are actually midweek matches that we need to get through as well. Who is going to do it? Chelsea very much in the driving seat. Arsenal, I mean, if they lose during the week, then that's kind of everything done for them. But Emma, what do you think?
Yeah, Karen asked me this a couple of weeks ago, and I said Chelsea because I thought the momentum was with them. But yeah, I'm going to stick with them. But they definitely do have the harder game. And I think Emma Hayes kind of alluded to her in her pre-match as well, kind of saying, listen, Arsenal are playing teams that don't really have a lot to play for. Chelsea are playing Birmingham, who's battling relegation, and then they've got United, who are looking for that Champions League spot at the last day of the season. So they definitely do have the harder to do. But I think they'll do it. I think they'll hold. They just know what it takes to win. They're a team of winners, and I think they'll edge it.
What about you, Pearl?
My heart wants Arsenal, definitely. Look, I'm gonna go for Arsenal. I'm gonna go for a mad upset on the final day. Arsenal beat Spurs during the week. United either hold Chelsea, and then Arsenal beat West Ham.
It'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
That's what I want.
So I'm just
gonna go for it. I'm not gonna stay safe. I'm gonna go for it.
That's the thing. I think most people are expecting Chelsea to win it and think it is kind of sealed for them.
Yeah.
Particularly because they have just been able to scrape out these wins where even if they're not playing great, they still do get the points. But I think it would be incredible if it did go to Arsenal. In terms of the Champions League places then, will City overtake United into that third spot, or are United going to hold on, bearing in mind that City do have a game in hand?
Again, yes, City play Birmingham, so like it's another one that they have something to play for. So it's such a terrible final week for Birmingham when they're battling relegation. But I think the form that City is in, it's hard to overlook. You would think that they will beat Birmingham, unfortunately. As much as we'd love to probably see Birmingham scrape it and manage to stay up with some miracle, it's going to be very hard for them to do that. I think City will nab the spot. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Well, we will have the recordings of this for next Monday, should we all have been proven wrong. And I am pretty sure Catherine, our producer, will be pulling them out and playing them back to us. Karen isn't here, so she won't be able to join in on all the fun, but I'm sure we'll be able to find something from during.
Gets away with it.
Can we give a shout out to Katie Taylor, by the way? Just Emma, I'm looking at your poster behind you, and I just want to say it'd be wrong of us tonight not to mention Katie Taylor.
Listen, we could have put her, found a place in the team for her. But
should have been all Katie Taylor.
Get her in the midfield. I was tempted. I was like, just for the crack.
I was going to make that joke. One of the favorite pieces I've ever written for ESPN was about Katie Taylor and her football career, and no one there knew anything about it. They're like, whoa, didn't realize she could have been a pro footballer. And I was like, that's our Katie. She's just great.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously a magic weekend for her, and just for sport. We also had the Sevens performing very well, so generally for Irish women it was a very good weekend. We will leave it there, but we will be back next week with our ultimate all-conquering last round of the COYGIG WSL Team of the Week. But in the meantime, get your thoughts and opinions into us on what you make of Emma's selection this week. You can tweet us at @OffTheBall and use the hashtag OTB COYGIG, and make sure to let us know who you think is going to win the title.
The COYGIG Pod and OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.
Joining us this week on the show is London City Lioness player and Irish international Rianna Jarrett. Rianna, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
I suppose start with what's happening right at the moment. Season end, how have you felt about this season has gone for you and for the club?
I think as a whole, for the club, we managed to finish the league in second place, which is the highest the club has ever finished. I think this is the third season that the club has actually been around. The club were previously Millwall, and then they separated to become their own identity, and this is kind of the third full season that they've done that. And I think if we had said at the start of the year to people that we would have finished the league in second place, everybody probably would have laughed at us and and said we were kind of reaching too high. But for us, I think the way that the season went overall, I think up until Christmas we were right there or thereabouts with Liverpool, ourselves, Crystal Palace, and we unfortunately had kind of a little a dip in form after Christmas. I think we lost maybe 5 in 7 games. which ultimately turned out to be the deciding factor. Obviously, Liverpool were the most consistent team throughout. But I think we managed to pick up form towards the end, which we're absolutely over the moon with. For me personally, I haven't actually played since the end of January. So I picked up an injury in my calf to begin with. I tore my calf, and then I managed to hurt my meniscus in my left knee when I was coming back from my calf injury. So kind of still battling with that at the minute. So it's been an up and down season for me personally, but I've enjoyed it both when I was on the pitch and off the pitch, kind of like the last couple of months in a kind of different role, supporting the girls on and cheering on from the sideline.
And you've had quite an unfortunate run in general when it comes to injuries, and this is something that we actually chatted to Leanne Kiernan about a little bit when she was on the show a couple of months back. But do you feel now, having had that experience, that you're in a slightly better place to, I suppose, as you say, have that role off the pitch and help people off the pitch? And how have you found that for yourself? Because I imagine it's probably quite frustrating while also quite nice to still have a role and still have something that you can do to help the team.
Yeah, I think obviously anyone that knows me or knows anything about me knows that I struggled with injuries, but I was kind of on a good run of things. I think I hadn't been injured. I've been back on the pitch since 2017, and I was doing well for the last number of years, and kind of thought that the injury side of things were behind me. But unfortunately, that's sport at the highest level, and it comes with the territory. I think I know how to conduct myself off the pitch when I'm injured. I know how to support the girls, and I'm in a team environment where it's a very young team and very inexperienced team. So I think even though I haven't been playing, they've still been needing my voice and been needing me to help them in different situations. And I think coming into this team, being as one of the more experienced and one of the older players, I think I'm 28 in the summer, is a new experience for me. I think when I played with Wexford, obviously you had the likes of Kylie Murphy, Adele Kennedy, Nicola Sinnott that were always older than me and were always kind of like guiding me on. And although I've been around for a number of years, I was never kind of in that kind of older category. So it's been a new experience. I think dealing with the injuries this year has been difficult because, as I said, I tore my calf. Sorry. To begin with, it was only supposed to be a short-term thing, and then turned into like 5.5 weeks. And then when I was finally back in fully training, I tweaked my knee a bit, and we actually weren't sure of the extent of the damage. And I actually only found out last week that I actually need surgery. So I'm going in for surgery on my meniscus on Wednesday to get that sorted out. So it's kind of been a roller coaster kind of couple of weeks, but I'm kind of at the point where I'm glad that we finally know what the story is, and we can finally get the wheels in motion to hopefully get me back on the pitch sooner rather than later.
Rianna, just obviously you mentioned there the Women's National League. Obviously, I would know you well from your time with the Women's National League and the battles we've had over the years. I definitely don't miss them. But just, I suppose, in terms of people probably listening from home, just your journey since leaving Wexford, you would have obviously, played part-time. You would have had your own schedule in terms of the gym in the morning, going to work in the afternoon, if you remember, because you had to work part-time and then training late with Wexford, then move into a full-time environment. I mean, what's that journey been like for you? What's the big differences for you on and off the pitch? And I suppose, are you still enjoying it? And I'll get a little hint in there. Will there be ever a Women's National League return for you in the future?
Obviously for me, the move from Wexford to Brighton was who I signed my first professional contract with. Kind of happened overnight. I think for 3 or 4 months I was trying to move away. I was trying to get the opportunity. Ended up going on trial with Brighton kind of early January, and then kind of like the last 2 days of the transfer window in 2020, it came about that they offered me a contract, and I was kind of hemming and hawing, wasn't too sure on whether I was going to accept it or not. And it turned out to be like a good decision that I did in the end, because who knew that maybe like 6 weeks later that the whole world would be shut down due to a pandemic. So we were fortunate enough that unfortunately the end of the 2020 season got cut short, but we were able to pick things back up again in the summer as if things had never changed. Obviously social distancing and how we approached the game was different, but we were still able to train in a full-time environment. In terms of the facilities that we had at Brighton was unbelievable. And I think for me it was the first time that I was able to focus just on my football. That, as you said, I wasn't rushing from going to the gym before work to then going to work 8 hours sitting at a desk to then have to rush off to travel an hour, hour and a half to get the training and then do it all over again the next day. And I think for me that was kind of like a breath of fresh air. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a completely different level than what I was playing at in the Women's National League, and it did take me a while to get up to the standard. And I still think I probably never kind of done myself justice at that level, for whatever reason that may be. And that's why this season I was looking forward to taking a step down into the championship and playing week in, week out, and kind of seeing what I can do and seeing where I can push myself and kind of test myself in this level that isn't quite the level of the WSL, but it is getting better each and every year. And I still do believe that it is that little step above the Women's National League. As I said, for me, the key thing was having the opportunity where I didn't have to work full time and worry about planning my training schedule or fitting everything in the week. And I think for me this year, although I managed to get injured again, it's still been kind of a breath of fresh air having some free time just for me and to focus on me. And I think being injured and having that free time has been important for me to deal with things kind of both on and off the pitch. And in terms of your question, Pearl, about returning to the Women's National League, obviously, hopefully that door will never be closed. But I'd like to think that my journey in England isn't finished just yet. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to end it on this.
That's good news. That's good news.
We all like the idea of keeping seeing you going for a good few years yet. And you mentioned the fact that, you know, London City Lionesses is a relatively young team, both in terms of the fact that the club itself was only properly founded in 2019 and the age of the actual players themselves. I've been so impressed with them this season in particular. It feels like the season where you guys have really hit your stride. And I know you said you had that down period where last week it was 5 out of 7 matches, but you're still able to come back from that and kind of mentally recover from that to come second to a Liverpool team who were pretty incredible all season. What was the general chat around the camp in terms of were people before Christmas looking at it as this is a genuine we could get promoted run? Is that what the goal was for the team for the year?
I think for us as a team, both players and staff, I think we had those conversations kind of early doors when we came in for pre-season. And I was actually only chatting to my manager, Melissa Phillips, about it today in our kind of end of year meeting. And we were saying that there was a huge turnover of players in the summer window just gone, that I think she signed 13 new players, and she kind of thought long and hard about these players, not just as players, but also as individuals and personalities and what they could bring to the team. And as I said, the team is very young, but we've got a lot of players that are kind of wise beyond their years as well. And obviously you still have that kind of immaturity level. But I think when we were going through that sticky patch, obviously at the start of the year, our aim was to get promoted and everybody was kind of rowing in the one direction. And when you reach a sticky patch and things just aren't going your way and the results aren't going your way, it's easy to kind of get on each other and to change everything about the environment, change everything about the team. But luckily we do have, although these players are young, they are able to take criticism, and we were able to have some needed kind of long discussions, people taking ownership of different things, and we tried new things. And I think in kind of the last kind of month or 6 weeks, there was a difference in our style, but it wasn't a difference as to who we are or what our identity as a team were. And I think the fact that we were able to adapt and kind of come through that sticky patch, because unfortunately winning and losing can become a habit as well, and obviously the longer you go without winning, the harder it gets, the more frustrating it gets. But to be able to get the job done in the end and to be able to finish strong and to be able to finish second in what's been a very competitive championship has definitely been a positive season for us. But as I said, ultimately we missed out on our aim goal, which was winning the league. But credit to Liverpool, they were by far the most consistent team in the league. And I think after we beat them the first day of the season, they didn't lose again until the closing day of the season. So that's kind of credit to them and credit to Matt Beard and what he's done with them. But obviously disappointing for us. We wanted to be in that position, but Liverpool are definitely a WSL team. I think hopefully the men's side have taken note and can continue to back them more, and we'll see them up there fighting again with the likes of your Arsenal, Chelsea, Cities, and obviously United who have come along in recent years.
Yeah, it is nice to see the Liverpool team get back to what like the early years of the WSL and what we would expect from them, and I suppose the commitment you would expect from a club that is successful as Liverpool putting towards their women's outfit. And you've talked a lot about your move from Brighton to London City Lionesses, and the whole point being trying to get more game time. And I know that was a little bit hampered by the fact that you have been injured for the last couple of months. But prior to that, how were you feeling in your own game, and how were you feeling having made that move? Was it one that you were happy with and you were feeling quite content about where you were growing?
I think it was definitely a positive move for me. As I said, the key thing was that I needed to be in an environment where I was not only playing week in, week out, but I was also being challenged. And I think it was definitely have that in terms of the team that we have here. And although I enjoyed my time in the WSL, it just wasn't for me. And sitting on the bench for kind of 18 months had its toll on me. And I think you could see that in terms of my performances, not only in an international jersey, but at club level as well. And I think for me last summer, it was important that I thought about what was best for me. And I do think that kind of the turn of the year, coming into January, I was slowly starting to find my feet. I was slowly starting to feel a little bit more comfortable, slowly starting to get back to the type of player, kind of the movements that I was doing in the Women's National League before I signed, and kind of remembering what I was all about as a player. And I think I kind of lost my identity a little bit over the course of those 18 months when I wasn't playing so regularly. And I think for me, it was tough to kind of like realize that and have those tough conversations with managers and kind of accept that, and not only accept it, but figure out how I was going to kind of get out of that situation. And I felt that come January, I was working hard with the management and the S&C coach, and we were seeing strides in my performances. We were seeing changes, and I think it was very disappointing then to get injured at the time that I did, because obviously it was all that hard work, and I was kind of like, for what? But obviously that is sport. Sport can be cruel, and especially at the highest level. And as I said, injuries are a part and parcel of it. It's kind of like how you react, and obviously I've reacted to things previously in the past, and always seem to come back better and stronger. And obviously I'm hoping that this will be the same. That hopefully next season I'll start to kind of like remember who I am, and start to kind of grow again as a player.
Yeah, look, you deserve massive credit, I suppose, Ryan, just for your mental strength, just on the injuries that you had, in previous years, never mind this one. So it's a big credit to you. But in terms of, I'd be a type of player like yourself. If I haven't been playing, you have to play at a consistent level, don't you? Just keep your game going. And obviously, injuries, obviously, I suppose got in the way in parts of this season for you. And I suppose just in terms of the women's national team, then, just seeing how well they're doing and stuff. I'm always fascinated when players are out of a squad for whatever reason, injuries or whatever it may be. Like, do you look at it and you're a bit frustrated that you're not involved? Because obviously the previous campaign you were so involved, and obviously you're still around, you're still involved. But when you see the likes of the Sweden game, the support they're getting, the opportunity to, I suppose, get to the World Cup and the campaign, and how close we are to get into a major tournament, when the injuries come and you're not in the squad, is it hard to look at it, or is it? I'm just always fascinated how players kind of deal with that when you come into a squad and then you're back out.
Yeah, obviously it's definitely difficult looking from the outside in, but I mean to see the success that they're having, and especially that most recent Sweden game, I think it was phenomenal. I am their biggest fan, and always will be their biggest fan. Obviously my goal is to break back into the setup, but obviously I can only focus on me individually first, and then obviously getting back into the swing of things in club football. But I will always be the girls' biggest fan if I'm not involved. I mean, we've got a great group of girls, we've had talented teams throughout the years, and the support that we're getting, and the players are performing at a higher level, and we're not only putting it up to the top teams in the world. You can say that Sweden are pipped to win the Euros this summer, and we went out there and we're unlucky not to come away with all 3 points. And the fact that we're now taking points and we're putting it up to them on a performance level, it is unbelievable. And I do hope, whether I'm involved or not involved, that the girls can get the job done and make it to the World Cup. I think we've got an unbelievable combination of youth and experience in that team, and I think that this is without a doubt our best chance to make it to a major tournament. And I'm certainly rooting for the girls. I said I'm their biggest fan, and I was fortunate enough that during the last camp I managed to get home for a few days, and I went into Castleknock and had some coffee with some of the girls. And I think obviously I'm missing the football part of it. I'm missing playing for my country, missing representing Ireland, but first and foremost, I'm missing the girls. I was like, we all are friends, both on and off the pitch, and that is massive. But as I said, I will always be their biggest fan, even if I'm not involved in the squad. And I think that's what makes us such a great nation, is that even though you're not involved yourself, you're still rooting for that person, and you still want the best for us. And I hope that that never changes about the Irish, because I think that is something special that we have that a lot of other people and a lot of other countries don't have.
Yeah.
And have you, beyond like actually seeing the team and stuff, have you had much contact with the Irish camp over the last couple of months, just in terms of your injuries and keeping them updated on where you're at and what the prognosis is, I suppose, going forward? Because there is some exciting matches coming up. I know you said you have surgery on Wednesday, so I'm not sure what the long-term recovery is for that for you.
So yeah, I'm still in contact with them regularly. They're updated on my situation and where I am. Obviously that's down to the medical staff at my club to provide those reports, and I have been touch base kind of more recently with the physio and doctor, trying to get old scans and new scans and updating them on where I'm at. As I said, even with the upcoming games, my focus is I need to focus on me getting back on the pitch, and we're still unsure as to how long away that is at the minute. Obviously just looking forward. Well, I wouldn't say looking forward to getting the surgery on Wednesday. Who would be looking forward to an operation? But looking forward to getting that out of the way and kind of being on the other side of the recovery and being able to push on. But I've got the support of the medical staff. They're there for any questions or any worries that I have. They're always on the other side of the phone, and obviously I'll be always thankful for that.
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever looks forward to surgery necessarily, but I can totally understand how you're like, okay, well, at least it's doing something about the problems that I have and fixing them going forward. I can totally understand that perspective. For you, in the longer term, what are the sort of goals? Because you've done a long stint in the Women's National League. You're now with London City Lionesses. You've done Brighton in the WSL. You've played at international level. What are the long-term career goals besides just getting back on the pitch in this next couple of months, hopefully?
I think obviously for me, as I've said, it's about getting back to my best, and it's being in an environment that is going to allow and to help me do that. And I think at the minute I will be hopefully staying with London City, and being in a position to do that. They're very supportive of. Once we found out what was wrong with my knee, we were able to get in nice and quick, and I think it's been kind of a quick turnaround in the last 10 days. But for me, it's just being in an environment where I can push myself to get back to my best, and see where that is, see where that leaves me, and see. I'm open to everything. I just want to continue playing for as long as I can, at as high a level as my body will allow me, but also my performances will allow me. And if that's in the championship, if that's in the National League in Ireland, who knows? As I said, I'll keep trying. I'll keep knocking that door down and see where we are. But obviously, as I said, I've proved that I could do it in the Women's National League, and I could prove that I could do it not also at that level, but play international level in the Women's National League. And there's players that are still doing that. So you don't necessarily have to be abroad to play. You just need to make sure that wherever you are, that you are playing consistently and you're performing at that level. And unfortunately, that's something that I haven't been doing in the last kind of 18 months, 2 years. So for me, it's important to take a step back and look at that and make sure out of everything that is what is happening, not only for my international career, but I think just for me and an enjoyment level of the game in general.
I think out of many of the players that we have talked to on the show, considering the luck you have had, is someone that we would love to see on the pitch consistently and enjoying their football and enjoying playing, because it is a pleasure to watch you when you are on the team. Looking at all the different things you've gone through, I mean, 3 ACLs before you're 21, the injuries you've had this year, the tough spell at Brighton. I know we had Chloe Mustaki on, and she said her ACL tear was almost harder than going through her cancer treatment, just the mental element of it. For you, which was the toughest one that you faced into? And do you feel like now, having that little bit of time behind you and being that little bit older, and I suppose having had that time at Brighton where you just wanted to get on, like, you react differently to it now?
I think obviously being so young when I went through all those injuries, I kind of had to kind of mature and grow up really fast. And I think that each one stood to me differently, and each one brought like a different challenge. And I think for me, definitely tearing my ACL for the third time was the most difficult. I think I had some hard conversations with not just myself, but physios I was working with about whether I actually wanted to continue playing, whether I wanted to get back to the highest level at that point, whether I was crazy, whether I was stupid. I had opinions of some people telling me that I'd never make it back to that level. And I think for me, having those hard discussions with myself and saying those thoughts out loud and actually figuring out what was going on was probably the hardest part, because I think at that time I was only 21. I was still, looking back, I was still very young and had dealt with a lot kind of on the pitch. But I think that I've learned a lot of kind of like life lessons through my injuries and through sport, and I have learned how resilient I am. Maybe people will call me crazy to still be kind of putting up with and still doing it, but I think that I've learned a lot through my injuries and through sport that I never would have learned in any other aspect of life. And I think that is something that I will hopefully carry into the rest of my life with me. But as I said, they each brought their own challenges, and this one now is a different challenge. I'm just glad that we're out of the uncertainty and we know what it is, so we can put a definitive plan in place to get me back.
Rianna, just in terms of the league, I know you're an outsider now, and I keep bringing you back to the Women's National League. But I suppose once a Women's National League player, always a Women's National League player. But just in terms of, fascinating to hear from you. You've obviously left the league a few years now. I suppose looking in from the inside now in terms of social media, I know you're obviously still a big Wexford fan. Do you think the league has developed and improved and taken strides since you've left from what you're looking at on social media and speaking to probably the Wexford girls and the club? And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on what you think in terms of the Women's National League, and has it grown, I suppose, since you have left?
I think, yeah, it's definitely grown. Obviously, you can see that it is becoming that little bit more competitive. Obviously, you've still got Shelbourne and Wexford and Pease that are up there and are challenging. But I think even if you've seen the results from the weekend gone, there are teams that are getting closer to the top three, and ultimately that's what you want. And I'm sure for you as a player, Pearl, you want to be going into every game and having to give your best and having to dig deep to get those wins. And I think that you can see with those results getting that little bit closer for whatever reason. But I think just the promotion of the league the last 2 years, say, has been phenomenal. I think the fact that even like watching from the outside in, I can now access all the games. You can choose who you want to watch on any given weekend, and I think that that's only going to bring like more coverage to the game. The players are doing more interviews, the social media posts. I think even the club's own social media pages have gotten a lot better, and I think that that's kind of coinciding with what's going on with the women's national team. And I think that the more that continues to grow, we're in an age where like social media is very dominant and it is everything. And I think as long as that continues to grow, I think that we'll see more kind of funding and more promotion into the players, and the more funding and the more backing that the players get, the easier it'll be for them to be able to put their best foot forward. And the more facilities they have, the more access to things that they have in the league is only going to get better and better. But obviously it is a domino effect. You need one thing in place to keep building and to get to those next standards. And I think that obviously it's by no means a finished product, but you can see, and I'm sure you can vouch for that, being involved in not only the league as a player, but also from an FAI standpoint of view, that you can see how far it's come. But obviously there's a lot more still to do, but hopefully it can continue to keep growing at the rate that it is.
Brilliant.
Definitely something we encourage every single week on the show for the growth and general success of the Women's National League, because also the more successful it is, the more opportunities players like yourself get to go off into the world and do us proud in general. Rianna, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck with the surgery on Wednesday. We will all be thinking of you and can't wait to see you back on the pitch hopefully soon.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Emil.
That's it for this week's episode of the COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland Women's National Team. As ever, we will be back again with you next week for a final episode before our summer break, as we reflect on what we hope is going to be a very exciting final weekend to this year's WSL season. So make sure you're subscribed to the COYGIG podcast feed in all your usual places, and we'll chat to you then.
The COYGIG Pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury. A player and a half deserves a glass and a half of support.